City.
Actually, that's spot on.
It is spot on.
All the competition that try to compete.
Everything is spot on.
Here on SOS discussion, the Ravens, they're doing really well, especially for all the injuries we've had. But we've seen recently the team has struggled, and most notably Lamar Jackson has struggled, right? So do we think Lamar Jackson's struggles are a cause for concern, or is it just a slump, kind of how we saw Patrick Mahomes early in the season? Andre, I'll start with you.
I don't think that you can possibly say to a team that we thought wasn't going to be good at all, wasn't going to make the playoff at all, a team that we said, they injured their most important players. They just lost Marlon Humphrey too. So when it rains, it pours. It just pours. And a player who was going to be MVP or was in MVP discussions a month ago. And then after that, now it's a cause for concern where they're exploiting now. Teams are finally exploiting their weaknesses. The offensive line is trash. Lamar has not been great. I will say that he's not taking underneath throws like he should be. And he's done it before against the Colts and things like that. That's why I don't think it's a long-term concern. He's done it before. He's just not doing it now. And I think it's because he feels like he has to put that S on his chest, be Superman. But this team has really, especially with the loss of Marlowe, now they kind of don't have anything except for squeezing out some hope from the defensive line because, they have no running backs. We knew that before. They're leaning on the worn out knees of Devontae Freeman. Their defense has been up and down. They've been great as of late, thankfully, but now you just lost Marlon, and now you have nobody in what was a very deep secondary. I think that they've exceeded expectations. I think Lamar is having a slump and playing to where we thought that the team would be now. And so now that he's playing to where we thought the team would be now we're concerned after he's been pulling stuff out of his butt the previous month or the previous 2 months. I think it's just regression to a means. And, they were still, even with Lamar not doing all that great, still one throw away from winning in that Steelers game. I think that, Coach Harbaugh should be on, a list for being coach of the year because of that. I think that Lamar still being great. I think it's just injuries are catching up when you have entirely half an entire roster of players on IR, and all of them seemingly are important players. I don't know what do you want. And most of the AFC has been up and down too. When you look at these quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Herbie, nobody wants to win MVP is what's happening right now. And so Lamar's just not playing up to his potential, but I'm not concerned in the long term because half an entire team is on IR at all important positions. So.
Yeah, I agree. Given a lot of pressure, losing a lot of people early on the season, and to get where you are now and to kind of regress, people are going to want to talk and say, oh, is he Lamar Jackson that we was talking about a month ago, weeks ago? Is he Lamar Jackson that won MVP? He looks good. But you got to understand, he doesn't have any run game or run support. And then on top of that, he's literally expected to throw the ball to receivers who primarily, if you put on other teams, they're going to be number 2s and number 3s. So my thing is we're putting so much pressure on Lamar, but we're not realizing the situation. Any other quarterback in this situation will not be 8-4. No quarter, not even Patrick Lamar, not even Patrick Mahomes. No, I wouldn't believe if Patrick Mahomes was on that team with no run game and no number one receiver, it's no way he could do what Lamar is doing. So I think critics should just kind of realize, hey, this is a team who's literally in the playoffs right now without a number one corner, just lost another number one corner, number 1 and number 2 running back. O-line, pretty much the whole O-line is hurt. And they're only depending on, like you said, the defense. Odafe, a young rookie who's producing. You got Tyus Bowser, who's been balling. Dude has been balling. pass coverage, pass rush, like whatever they need him to do, he's doing. Patrick Queen is starting to become his own. He's starting to play better. Yeah, you lost your back end safeties and your corners, but think about this, man. Like they're still competing with teams with all those people gone. And like you said, they lost by 1 point. If you kick a field goal, they go into overtime, and who knows? Like Lamar, I bet on Lamar in overtime rather than Ben Roethlisberger. And so if we go in overtime, the Ravens win that game. But they went for the win. I respect it, but I just want the criticism to kind of slow down and like, hey, let's realize that this man is doing something that no other quarterback in this league could possibly do. Possibly other than Tom Brady, but no other quarterback in this league could do anything that Lamar is doing. And yes, he has regressed, but let's look at the bigger picture. He's regressing and still winning games.
And even Tom Brady, I'll just say, even Tom Brady at this stage in his career, he needs a great offensive line to thrive.
Exactly. And a number one receiver on both ends, because Goodwin can go anywhere and be a number one receiver. Mike Evans has always been a number one receiver. So
and
it's like you got weapons. Like no other quarterback could do what Lamar is doing with the team that he has. And it just makes me think, okay, when they come back next year and they're healthy and they bring all these players back, they are going to be a force to reckon with in the AFC. Like, they are going to be crazy good. So, shouts out to Lamar, man. Just keep doing your thing, bro. I mean, it's going to come. It's going to come.
Yeah, so I definitely think Lamar's struggles are a cause for concern. When you look at it, like I said, his last 4 or 5 games, 8 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. I believe he's leading the league in interceptions over the last 5 games, and he missed a game in that span. And I think what happens with Lamar is just kind of with anything in life, when you get away with having bad habits, eventually that catches up to you, right? And so you look at some of the things like that pass he made yesterday in the end zone, right? Or the interception the interception that he threw in the end zone, right? Where he's backing up from TJ Watt, instead of throwing the ball away, just finding a way. I mean, you don't want to take the sack, but just throw the ball away, live to see another play, right? He has to make the hero play and throw it up in the end zone, and it gets picked. But he was rewarded for that a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember, where he just chunks the ball up down the field, and Mark Andrews catches it with one hand. So like I said, when you develop bad habits like that and they work for you because you're super athletic and you're Lamar Jackson, you continue to rely on plays like that, right? And then when they don't work for you, it looks bad. And I think, and I know this is where I may take some criticism or we may disagree. I feel like Lamar Jackson, and I know that he took so much unfair criticism going into the league, but I feel like it's almost got to the point now to where we're like scared to criticize Lamar Jackson. And I honestly don't think we hold Lamar Jackson to the standard that he deserves. If you look at any other player that's won MVP in the league, I don't feel like we make excuses for any other player in the league that has won MVP the way that we do for Lamar Jackson, right? And when I say that is, like, I see a lot of people, like, we talk about the 2-point play specifically, right? And I saw so many people like say, oh, Mark Andrews should have caught that ball. Mark Andrews literally was trying to tip that ball to himself. Yeah. It's a bad throw. It's okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Lamar Jackson missed the throw. TJ Watt was in his face. He tried to jump up. He missed, you know what I'm saying? He missed the throw. Okay. But it's like, blaming Mark Andrews for that is crazy. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just see like so much of that, you know what I mean? And Lamar, like you said, what he's done this season is crazy, overcoming all the injuries. I mean, you talk about one of the most important positions on the field, one of the best left tackles in the league, Ronnie Stanley, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. I mean, he's lost so much, right? And to be 8-4 is amazing, right? But he's just not playing well right now. He's really locked into his bad habits. He's making a lot of bad plays, and at times he's hurting his team, right? And that's been the case kind of for the last month. And so I do think it's a cause for concern. I think Lamar Jackson is a great young player. He's bright. He's obviously an MVP of the league, and I hold him to that standard. And so he hasn't played well at all, but I do think he'll get back to that MVP level of play. He's one of one, really, all time. You know what I mean? I don't even think you can really compare Michael Vick to him. I've said that for a long time. Like, I think he surpassed Michael Vick a long time ago. And if you think I'm crazy, go look at Michael Vick's stats, right? Like, like what we think about Michael Vick was always better than what he was actually putting, you know what I mean, in the box score. So, I think he's great. I think he's amazing, and I think he'll figure it out just because I think he wants to, right? You know what Lamar's made of, right? He's humble, but he's a winner. He's a competitor. He's going to come out there and get better, and he takes the responsibility. This is on me. You know what I mean? And so I think that it is cause for concern, but I think that he'll get better because I think that's what Lamar Jackson is made of. But I just think sometimes we hesitate to criticize Lamar Jackson, or we kind of coddle Lamar Jackson because of all the unfair criticism he's taken since he got into the league. And a lot of it was unfair and a lot of it was racially charged. But at the end of the day, he's a former MVP of the league. And I feel like we need to hold him to that standard. I don't think we do that all the time.
And I think that's why, like, I think cause and concern, when I think about cause and concern, I think like this is who you're starting to be like longer term. And that's where like I go a step back when it comes to like the habit term, because when it comes to like habit habitually, like Lamar Jackson, this is the most amount of turnovers I've watched like Lamar since Louisville, right? This is the most turnovers in his entire career that he's thrown in any game span, right? Like his MVP season, he's thrown 6 interceptions period, and now he has like 10 in a couple games. Like this is crazy. So like for me, it's not a cause of concern because of the injury. Of course he's not playing well. I'm the biggest Lamar Jackson stan in the world. I thought it was crazy what people were doing to him during the draft time. And that's why I like became such a big fan, because people are unfair and, like you said, racially charged as well when it comes to his criticisms of him. I don't see this as a habit though, because I think because his team has been in this bad situation, he probably feels, oh man, I need to suddenly turn it on. We've seen in the past too, like when he's had games like going back to his college career versus like Clemson, like, or versus like Mississippi State, he'll like let his team do some things and then he'll be like, oh, it's time for me to take over, right? And he'll do some things and he'll do some great things most of the time. But then this season, it's just not happening. It's not working out. And I don't think it's a habit. I think it's him trying to see the limits of which he goes, because I think habitually there are players like, let's say Patrick Mahomes, for an example. He's always been someone to touch the button and press things like a lot, right? He's been getting away with it the previous 2 years, but like this year is finally kind of catching up to him, and now he's starting to adjust. Josh Allen, it used to be a bad habit. Now he's starting to reel back on that, like trying to do too much and play too much hero ball. This is the most amount of hero ball I've seen, to where it's just mainly a lot more bad than good from Lamar Jackson in his entire career. That's why going forward, I don't think it's a cause for concern, especially considering all the injuries that you just listed. I see it as it's just a bad moment. He needs to learn how to take things for what it is. I think he knows that he could play better. I just think it's a bad stretch. We've seen a lot of players this year just have bad stretches. I just think it's a bad stretch. Hopefully he'll get it together. I don't think this is an indictment. I don't think it's a habit. I just think bad things happen. This is his bad moment and he needs to correct it, because we know this team could have won that game had he made a lot more checkdowns, done a lot more things. So this team still is holding it together. Now they probably won't, because you're missing Marlowe, and that was probably the wheel to kick off the cart. But he's trying to be Superman, and now he's starting to realize how much of a Superman he needs to be in order for his team to win. And sometimes Superman needs to step back in the booth and wake the heck up, right?
Yeah. And I'll say one thing that has coincided with Lamar's recent struggles, which probably is a cause for concern. When you look at it over like the last 5 weeks, teams are blitzing the Ravens about 65% on third down, which before that, they were blitzing them about 47%, right? So it went from 47% to 65%. And we've seen Lamar over the last 4 or 5 weeks, probably 4 games, 5 weeks, he missed a game, really struggle against the blitz. And so teams are, like I said, 65% of the time, that's almost 7 out of 10. They're basically just saying on third down, blitz Lamar Jackson. And he hasn't been able to beat it, right? He hasn't been able to overcome those blitzes. And you know, if somebody gets a book on you in this league, they're just going to continue to throw it at you until you adjust or until you fix it. I know the O-line is hurt. You know what I mean? I know that. I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson isn't good against the blitz. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying statistically, the last 5 weeks, he has not been good at all against the blitz. And that's why teams are blitzing him almost 70% on third down, because that's been his Achilles heel this last month. So I do think that's a cause for concern. And I think that that's something that the whole organization needs to look at and see how they can fix that. Because if they don't, teams, I mean, we saw the Steelers, you know, on Sunday, right? And any big play, they just send the house, right? And see what Lamar can do with it.
That's the team when you're talking about a blitz, like they will be the team to use that constantly over and over again. And that's why I say, like, To me, it's like, is this a Lamar concern? In 2019, he was the best in the blitz, and that's why part of the reason why he won this MVP, because people are like, oh, halfway through the year, let's blitz him a lot. People are like waiting in the back, trying to hope that he throws it, in the first part of the year, and then in the second half of the year, let's blitz him when the best in the league was well. I think it's a overall Baltimore Ravens concern,
Yeah, definitely.
because the offensive line, like Austin talked about, they've lost everybody. They've been one of the most rotated in the league. I think 15 different players have been swapped in and swapped out. I believe his pressure rate has increased like 10%, 10% plus, which is a lot for a quarterback to handle in this like entire span. And that's why I feel like it's not Lamar. I think it's the entire Ravens situation, because we know that Lamar's the type of player, okay, if it's like a couple players who he's very good in the pocket, right? One of the most underrated things about him when he was coming out of college, everybody thought he was running one read and run. No, he's always been great at movement in the pocket, learning how to do subtle movements, step up and manage it, right? You can do that when there's one edge defender getting at you, right? You can do that when, maybe that, somebody goes through like one of the gaps or whatever, right? You can duck around him, somebody else picks that up. You can't do that when the entire line is like crushing on you, like you're crushing on like a tube of toothpaste towards the end, right? You can't do that. And I think that's one of the issues, that the offensive line can't hold their pressure enough, the pressure enough in order for Lamar to feel comfortable to do something. And being Lamar, feeling like he has to do a lot, especially when you have no running backs, that leads to maybe like you're saying, in this point of time, just like doing bad things. I don't think it's a habit. I think it's just he's been doing a lot of bad things this past month. So I think that's an issue. The Baltimore Ravens, Greg Roman, and he's had his like kerfuffles. There have been players subtweeting him, wide receivers again. That's the third time in the row that the wide receivers have subtweeted the offensive coordinator, which is probably a bad thing.
Probably.
Probably. They need to figure out a plan to work with that blitz to get more hot routes. But Lamar actually needs to, like, there are hot routes that he didn't take this past Sunday. So I think that all comes together. Like, it's a Baltimore Ravens issue that they need to address in order. And that's why I think the focusing on Lamar, like, we love to talk about quarterbacks and how they're like the alpha and omega. And if things are doing great, they're Jesus. And if they're doing bad, they're the devil of the worst. I think I don't see that in the Ravens. I feel like it's Lamar just not doing well. Of course, he's not doing well, but that's because a lot of the things are not doing well, and that's causing him to not do well, in addition to him just not doing well in general as well.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
I understand what you're saying, Jonathan, because I feel you. Like, we don't want to get away from criticism and criticizing him when he's not playing good. And I agree. Like, when he's not playing good, let's talk about it. Let's exploit the fact, hey, you need to play better. But the situations are just kind of different. Like, this man really feels like he has to do so much, and it shows. Like you said, to throw the pick. No quarterback should ever throw off his back foot. But Lamar feels like, hey, I'm capable to throw off my back foot just because, like you said, you've done it already. But I mean, think about it. What quarterback's doing that? A lot of quarterbacks not doing that. Especially like
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson. You don't expect Lamar Jackson to do it already. So when he does it, I feel you. I totally understand what you're saying, Jonathan, about like not giving him bad habits, but I just feel like the situations are kind of different. And backdooring what you said, like the offense coordinator, even sometimes the defensive coordinator doing a zero blitz on third and fourth down. Who does that? Like, bro, who
Bill
does that?
Belichick.
So like,
That's why they almost
but
lost the
but
Bears game.
man, and it's just
But
like,
Bill
but
Belichick has the personnel for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
exactly. So
out
it's
there with
like
all the injuries,
when your
y'all got zero
personnel is
blitzing don't make sense. Yeah, for sure.
don't have no
I
starters out there. It's
wholeheartedly agree.
crazy. It's just crazy. So it's
Wholeheartedly
like
agree.
sometimes, yeah, we do have to keep the criticism on Lamar when he doesn't play good. I don't want to stray away from that because hey, you need to hear like, hey, we're not gonna coddle you. When you throw 4 picks, man, you gotta do better. You gotta do better. Even if you win the game, you have to play better. But the defense gotta play better. The coordinator has to do better. The defense coordinator, the head coach has to do better as well. Like everybody has to do better just because of the situation that they're in. And that's just how I feel. I feel like let's not bash Lamar so much right now, just because if Lamar wasn't winning, we would be sitting here like, is Lamar Jackson Lamar Jackson? Is Lamar Jackson the quarterback that we thought he was? But he's winning, bro. Like he's winning these games and putting this team in the playoffs. That's, let's be real, probably going to be a first round exit because of the depth and them not having their starters.
Blame him too for
and
that ridiculously.
Exactly, and then they're going to probably blame him for that. So it's like, let's just. I'm more of like an awe of what he's done, but I totally agree with you, bro. Like, let's not stay away from the fact that when you don't play good, you have to be criticized as if you're not playing good and not copied.
Yeah. And like I said, it's more so not even like the criticism, because if this was Lamar Jackson's like rookie year, we would more so look at it differently. Like the issue I have is like, we want to like reassess Lamar's ceiling all the time, but we never want to reassess the floor. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying like he's regressing or he's going to go all the way down to the floor, but it's like we have to hold him to that MVP standard, right? Like when he's not playing well, it can't be all the time Greg Roman's fault. It can't always be the receiver's fault. It can't always be anybody but Lamar's fault. And I just feel like I see that too much. And I have so much respect for Lamar and what he's accomplished that I have to hold him to that standard, right? We've been looking for 2019 Lamar since 2019, right? And so especially the way he's played over the last month. You obviously, you don't have to be 2019 Lamar. The Bills have a good record, and Josh Allen isn't playing nearly as well as he did last season, right? We see Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 weeks, So, it's like, it's like, teams are finding a way to win games and players are playing well. And, if they're not, we're criticizing them and things like that. Like I said, it's just Lamar Jackson is an MVP of this league. And, that's the standard that we have to hold him to, good or bad.
I believe that facts.
Yeah, and a lot of quarterbacks not doing well, and he's on that list, and that's why, like, we don't know who the heck is going to win MVP because of that, in part because everybody's up and down and volatile and stuff like that. But Lamar needs to do better, and he'll be the first one to say, like, I played like a rookie, like the game that they played through 4 interceptions, so I expect better from him. I think he could be way better. I think all of us in the panel think he could be way better, but this time, just not a good time for him.
Definitely. So let us know what y'all think. Is this cause for concern? Will Lamar Jackson get back to the MVP form? And will they be able to make some noise throughout the rest of the season and in the playoffs? Once again, this is an SOS discussion. Jonathan Davis, I got Andrea with me, Austin with me. Another episode. Thank y'all for tuning in. Like, subscribe, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your daddy, all of that. See you next week.
We thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to check out more shows here on this YouTube page, such as SOS Discussions or My Point Exactly. And most of all,
keep watching Spot On Sports!
It's a new wave of sports that's sweeping the nation. We're not just accurate, it's spot on.